All right, here we go. It's a brand new Flyers Daily. How about for the final day of the calendar year 2024? It's December 31st, 2024. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. New Year's Eve hockey tonight in San Jose as the Flyers will continue their road trip against the Sharks tonight. First game of the road trip. Well, I guess technically the first game of the trip was before the holiday. Post-holiday road trip. Flyers went into Anaheim, got a 3-1 win. Went to Los Angeles, blew a 2-goal lead, and had a 5-4 loss. Tonight it's San Jose. Then coming up on Thursday, they'll be in Vegas for Flyers After Dark, 10 o'clock puck drop in the Sin City. And then the Flyers will work their way east for a game Sunday against Toronto and return the 7th against Toronto in Philadelphia. The matchup tonight, Flyers come into the game, 37 games played, 6th spot in the Metropolitan Division of the Eastern Conference. One game below Hockey 500, 16, 17, and 4. They're minus 21 in goal differential, and they are 4 and 6 in their last 10 games. The San Jose Sharks come in 39 games played, 11, 22, and 6, minus 37 in goal differential. They've lost 7 straight. They are 1, 8, and 1 in their last 10 games. Flyers got San Jose last year when they were on that, I don't know if it was 12 or 13 game winless skid to begin the season. They've only won 1 game since December 3rd. They've only won 2 games since the calendar flipped to December. They won back on December 3rd against Washington, 2-1 in overtime. And then they won in St. Louis 4-3. Other than that, they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning 8-1, lost to Florida 3-1, lost to Carolina 3-2. 4-3 to Utah, 4-3 to Winnipeg. They lost to Colorado, to Edmonton. It was an overtime loss, so they got a point. Lost to Vancouver, lost to Vegas, lost to Calgary. And that brings us to tonight, where the Flyers get to face off against San Jose for the second time this season, where San Jose back on November 11th lost to the Flyers at Wells Fargo Center. 4-3 was that game. Flyers won it in the shootout. So it's been a struggle for San Jose so far this season. Although their young rookie, Macklin Celebrini, is having a very good year. He's a point-per-game player, but he doesn't lead them in points. It's Michael Granlund, who in 37 games has got 11 goals, 23 assists, 34 points, playing over 21 minutes a night. He's been a key factor for them. And Macklin Celebrini, second in scoring. Well, tied for second in scoring with William Macklin, but Celebrini's only played 27 games, was out with an injury for a bit. 12 goals, 15 assists, and 27 points, and he's averaging 19 minutes and 57 seconds on the ice. Who's the goaltenders for the San Jose Sharks? So they traded Mackenzie Blackwood. They've got Vitek Vanacek. They traded for Yaroslav Askarov, who has been a little all over the place. Of course, was a draft pick, first-round pick of the Predators, and we'll see who the Flyers get tonight. For the Flyers, I'd imagine Sam Ersson goes tonight once again, and we're going to talk about goaltending more in depth in just a couple of minutes. After all, it was the biggest question mark coming into this season, and here we sit well into the season, 36 games into the season, and it's still a huge question mark for the Philadelphia Flyers. We'll discuss why and maybe how they can get out of that 37 games into the season for the Flyers. Now, one of the things about the Sharks, I've compared them with the Flyers in this regard before. You know, they're a team that doesn't have a ton of high-end talent. They're a team that's in a rebuild, clearly. Their power play is ranked 21st in the NHL. I said going into the season, I'd like to see the Flyers' power play click at about 18%. And that would be exactly where they are. They're at 18.2%, 21st in the NHL. I don't think any team's going to go from being 32nd the last 3 years to top 10. But an incremental step would have been to go to that 18%. We'll see if they can get there. I don't have much faith at this point. They're at 14.7%, ranked 29th in the NHL. But that's an area. I look at a team like San Jose. Why are they able, with their lack of high-end talent, able to have that success on the power play, yet the Flyers are not? It's a worthy question to ask. And it's one that I don't fully know the answer to, but I am clearly have mentioned it quite a bit here on the podcast. And frankly, I just want to be done talking about it because it's improved, but it just is not the case. So Flyers, San Jose tonight. And obviously, you know, part of the storyline in this game is the two rookies, Macklin and Celebrini, going head-to-head with Matvei Michkov, the two, I suppose, frontrunners for the Calder Trophy as the Rookie of the Year. Now, I don't get too caught up in these things, especially as the season's going on. Is he going to win the Calder? He's the favorite now. Well, Celebrini's played 27 games, and Michkov has played, 35 games. So I don't get real caught up in this as you go along. But when you look at the head-to-head matchup, points per game, Celebrini's got the advantage. He's a point-per-game player, 27 points in 27 games. Although having more points is Matvei Michkov, who's got two more, 29. Michkov's got 12 and 17, 12 goals, 17 assists. Celebrini's got 12 and 15. I mentioned that Celebrini's playing about 19 minutes a night. Michkov's averaging about 16:38 so far this season. So it's a good battle, and these two guys will be there, I would imagine, right at the end of the season. But it's part of the storyline. I just wish, and I hope maybe that there's a player that comes into the league that can become the rival. I think, teams having rivalries is a good thing. When they're both good and they're really playing for meaningful real estate in the standings, playing meaningful games late in the season, and obviously playing playoff series. So that's important. But I think it's important, too, for the league's top players to have individual player rivals as well, like Crosby and Ovechkin. That was a great rivalry between two players, and it worked out beautifully because they were taken in two subsequent drafts and in the same division and relatively close geography. So it became a good rivalry of those two players. So I think that's an important element. So who's that player? Who could be that player for Matvei Michkov? Well, it's probably not Bedard because you only see the Blackhawks twice a year. And it's not going to be Celebrini because you only see the Sharks twice a year. So unless you get to a final against either one of those teams, it's not much of a head-to-head player rivalry. Maybe when Demidov comes to the Canadiens, if they improve and the Flyers and Canadiens play a bunch of meaningful games against each other, even though they're not in the same division but the same conference, maybe you could have that there. But I do believe that those head-to-head player rivalries also need to be of players that are drafted in relatively close succession. So if you were to say, well, Matvei Michkov and Jack Hughes could be a head-to-head rivalry, it's a little too far of a spread for me from when they were drafted. So that's kind of how I would look at that one. But Celebrini's a hell of a player. Michkov's a hell of a player. They're very different. One was taken first overall, obviously, last year by San Jose. Seventh overall was Michkov, who in an ordinary draft would have been probably second overall to Connor Bedard. But, hey, he found his way to the Flyers. Flyers found his way to him, and they're the benefactor of that. I did see on Twitter yesterday as well. We're going to kind of bop all over the place a little bit today on this episode. But I saw on social media that point projections based on 37 games into the season for the Flyers, the point projections of certain players. And this came out, Alex Appleyard put this out. I know, just some work for PHLY. And he's a good foreign correspondent for the Philadelphia Flyers. And he said forwards updated 82-point game pace. Konechny right now is on a 91-point pace through 37 games. Michkov's on a 68-point pace, Tippett 49, Lawton 47, Frost 42, Couturier 42, Brink and Forster at 39. I think I said for Konechny, 91.5 was my over-under, and I took the over. So we're like right there on Konechny based on this projection. And for Michkov, I actually said 67 points for this season. He's on a projection of 68 right now. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm always going to pat myself on the back and not lose any sleep over it when I get a projection correct. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Now, one of the other things that you, everybody had as a big question mark coming into this season was goaltending. It was a huge question mark, and rightfully so. So we're into the season now, 37 games in, and you look at what the Flyers goaltenders have done. And I know Erson's been in and out of the lineup, and he does get some excuse for that because that's a reality, and he hasn't been healthy. And I don't think his game has found a ton of rhythm. But when you look at the Flyers and, their team save percentage, it's way down there. It's 32nd in the NHL. Their goaltenders this season, save percentage to me is always more indicative of how a goalie's been over goals against average. So save percentage for the Flyers goaltenders this year, Sam Ersson has an .880 save percentage. Kolosov's got an .869, and Fedotov's got an .877. So as we sit here 37 games in, certain questions have been answered to the affirmative. Others have been answered to the negative. And you just go back to the two games this weekend. The Flyers having that lowest save percentage, to me, isn't just a goaltending number. It is also a byproduct of the way they play. So when you look at, say, the game on Saturday against Anaheim, I'll put up this scoring chance heat map. At the one end, you see the Flyers getting tons of scoring chances in tight around the cage inside the house. And you see at the other hand, Anaheim didn't get much inside the house. The amount of times expected goals in the game was about 2.5. They only scored 1. A lot of shots came from the outside, were clear-sighted without rebound opportunities because Sam Ersson did a good job with rebounds in that game. Hence why you only give up the 1 goal. Now we go to the game on Sunday when the Flyers played the Kings and lost 5-4. And you see the environment here. You see Flyers got inside quite a bit, got some good scoring chances, hence the 4 goals against Los Angeles. But Los Angeles did a really good job attacking the Flyers' blue paint, getting into the middle and attacking them that way, hence them scoring 5 goals. Environment matters for a goaltender and the results. You can't just take that part out of the equation. Not all shots, not all scoring chances are created equal. And they have different models of goals saved above expected. And Brian Smith always says to me when I bring up expected goals in this game, he goes, expected by who? And it's a great point. But when you protect the middle of the ice, the goaltender is going to have better numbers because he's got more predictability in environment. He's got more predictability in where the shots are coming from because there's a lack of screen, all of that stuff. And the quality of the shots does matter. So when you look at those two games and you combine that with the result of goaltending they got in those two games, I didn't think Kolosov was bad in the game against the Kings. There's a couple tips. I didn't think he was great either, but I didn't look at the game and go, he's the reason they lost. I didn't look at it that way. It was a low volume, low event game. And we're seeing more low volume games in the NHL now than we've seen in many years. Teams aren't wasting shots with low quality shots. Those low quality shots did a couple of things. They got goaltenders into a rhythm, feel the play, feel the puck, made easy saves, and they were save percentage boosters. Well, you get less of those now, and you get the same amount of high quality that drops save percentage down. I know Andrei Vasilevsky's talked about this with Kevin Woodley from In Goal Magazine in an NHL.com article, which I'll have to link. Teams just aren't wasting shots anymore, low percentage shots. So that's kind of the effect of it. But the fact of the matter is this: the Flyers have the lowest save percentage in the NHL, and goaltending is a huge question mark. How do they handle it going forward? They haven't sent Ivan Fedotov back down. Is it time to either I think they got to do something. They either got to put him into a game, either tonight, maybe against Vegas, or send him down. He's got to play. He hasn't played a game in a while. I mean, the last game that Ivan Fedotov played was back on the 5th of December. We're now approaching the month of January. That's a long time without a game. And then to put him in and expect a good performance is tough. And in that game, he came in relief. Or was pulled in that game, rather, after the first period against Florida. Only played 20 minutes. Last time he played a full game was on the 29th of November. So they got to figure out what they're doing there because it's not doing him, the team, anyone any good not playing in games. So that's number one. How much do you ride Ersson? Kolosov's a goaltender that would benefit from being in the AHL, but the Flyers don't have the depth at the position at the NHL level to send him there. if he's your second best option, to Ersson. Take away the whole thing about him wanting to be in the NHL or he's going back to KHL. That part of the equation. And rushing goaltenders is a risky proposition to me. Do the Flyers look at a possible deal involving a goaltender or the waiver wire to grab somebody? Caden Primo was on the other day. I wouldn't have grabbed him, but because I don't think he improves your goaltending situation in any way. You only do it if it's going to improve. But if the Flyers can protect the middle of the ice better, it'll make it better for the goaltenders, and therefore they will not be overwhelmed. Now, the middle of the ice, the house, as I call it, you always want to protect the house in the D zone. And some people have asked me, what's the house? This is the house. I'll get my little board up here and draw the house. The house there's the house. There's the best place to score goals in the NHL. You want to keep everything out here. If you can do that and keep traffic line and sight lines clear, you're going to be in good shape. So as we sit there with that huge question mark, I remember on the episode on the 27th of August, where we did, the biggest question marks with the Flyers. Number one was goaltending. As we sit here on the 31st of December, number one is goaltending because it hasn't been answered and because it's so consequential. Where they go moving forward with this, I don't know. I really don't know. When I look at where save percentages rank in the NHL, as I mentioned, Sam Ersson, his rank in the NHL right now, Kolosov has the highest Flyers or second highest Flyers save percentage. He's 49th in the NHL at 869. For comparison purposes, the top save percentage in the league, ridiculous number, 928 by Connor Hellebuck. Got a much better environment there, too. Anthony Stolarz is a 927 in 17 games that he's played. Philip Gustafson in the Minnesota Wild in 25 games, 923. Really good environment as well with D that keep the middle of the ice protected. So those things are important. And as I brought up before, the Islanders under Doug Weight in his last year gave up the most goals in the NHL with Yaroslav Halak and Thomas Greiss. And they brought in Barry Trotz in the offseason. He brought his defensive system to protect the middle of the ice and made it non-negotiable for those players. Those same two goalies gave up the least amount of goals in the NHL the next year. They shaved off 100 goals year to year. That's more than a goal per game. Same two guys, just because of the environment change. We'll see what happens. We'll see who gets the start tonight. I'm intrigued. Maybe Fedotov gets the start tonight against the San Jose Sharks. Know this, though. We will break it down coming up tomorrow. So join us then on a brand new Flyers Daily.